Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation. We were given the order of primates and today we're going to talk about the ring-tailed lemur.
Ring-tailed lemurs are a part of the order of primates, and within this order there are 50 different genera and hundreds of different species of living primates. This makes primates a super diverse order. On this slide, you will find the classifications of a ring-tailed lemur on the bottom portion. The top half is going to have a small section of the phylogenetic tree of primates. The phylogenetic tree of primates is based upon its similarities of their morphology, rather than their common ancestors. The phylogenetic tree of primates also split into two distinct groups called the prosimians and the anthropoids, but the ring-tailed lemur is going to fall underneath the prosimians. The ring-tailed lemur is under the suborder Streptorahini, the family Lepidae, the genus Lemur, and the species Lemurcata. Within the genus Lemur, there are hundreds of types of species, which means there's going to be a lot of variety and diversity within this genus. However, all of them still remain relatively similar with their morphologies. In the previous slide, I talked about there being two major groups within the phylogenetic tree of primates. These two groups being the prosimians and the anthropoids, with the ring-tailed lemur falling underneath the group of the prosimians. However, the differences between the prosimians and the anthropoids are going to be pretty vast. So for the prosimians, they are going to be a lot smaller in size, and they're going to be a lot more primitive, meaning they're pretty ancestral, and their brains are going to be a lot smaller. Examples of the prosimians include the lemurs, the lorises, and the podos. However, for the anthropoids, they are going to be a lot larger in size. They are a little bit newer compared to the prosimians, and their brains are going to be a lot bigger, which leads them to kind of kick out the prosimians in certain areas of the world.
The general characteristics of the ring-tailed lemur include a distinctive black and white ring tail. This tail is very distinguished when compared to other lemur genera. The ring-tailed lemur is also considered the most terrestrial lemur, as it spends a good amount of time on land compared to other lemurs. The ring-tailed lemur has forelimbs with somewhat dexterous fingers, and those fingers have nails. However, the thumbs on those forelimbs are not opposable because the thumbs are fixed. The ring-tailed lemur also has a keratinous toe claw on the second hind limb digit that is used for grooming itself. And the first toe on its hind limb is opposable. This opposable toe is used for climbing trees to get to the higher canopies in the forest. Another part of their body that the ring-tailed lemurs use for grooming is the tooth comb that is formed by the procumbent lower incisors and canines, as seen in the picture to the right. It forms a comb-like structure that they can use to comb their fur. The ring-tailed lemurs have a white face mask coloration, which includes a black outlining which outlines their eyes and their nose. Ring-tailed lemurs have black skin under their tail fur, which is heavily pigmented in its epidermal layer. They have larger ears than many other lemur genera, which can be used to identify them from other lemurs, as well as their distinctive tail coloration. Their larger ears also do not have tufts at the end. Male ring-tailed lemurs have larger upper canines than the females do, which can be used to help to identify between them. The ring-tailed lemur fur is incredibly dense, and it must be maintained frequently in order to stay clean. Lemurs have a sublingual organ beneath their tongue, which helps to clean the tooth comb after they use it for grooming.
Okay, I'd like to touch on distribution for a bit. Ringtail lemurs can be found in Madagascar, which is an island located off the coast of southern Africa within the Indian Ocean. The image here shows how they are distributed specifically in the southwest area of Madagascar. There are an estimated less than 3,000 ringtail lemurs left in the wild right now, and there is a current need for conservation of their habitats, which is something we'll touch on later in the presentation. Functional and ecological data. The average weight of the ringtail lemur tends to be around 5 pounds, and the average length is 40 inches or 16.5 inches excluding the tail. The black and white tail of the ringtail lemur is a popular characteristic. The tail tends to be 25 inches or so, which is fairly long compared to the rest of the body. They will forage for food by looking in trees for nuts or fruit. They are opportunistic omnivores. The tamarind tree is one of their favorites to look in. In areas that aren't particularly grassy, they will look for small insects or flowers as well. They tend to avoid the grassy areas in order to avoid predators. And then we have the habitats for them. Mostly the habitats are just going to be different variations of forests. We have the montane forests, gallery forests, which are going to be along riverbanks, and deciduous forests.
Female ringtail lemurs reproduce starting at around 3 years in the wild. However, if they are in captivity, they could reproduce pretty early in their lifespan. It's going to be around 18 to 19 months. The mating season for a ringtail lemur is only around 1 to 2 days, so it's a pretty short amount of time, but it begins in April. The gestation period is around 4.5 months, but the offspring of a ringtail lemur is going to be born between August and September. Whenever a ringtail lemur gets pregnant, they usually only have one offspring at a time. However, if there are a lot of resources wherever they are, whether that be in wild or captivity, then they may have twins. So, for the first 2 weeks of an infant's life, they will be ratting on their mother's bellies. However, after the 2 week marks, then the infants can ride around on the mother's back. Around a month of age, the infants can be a little bit more independent and venture off on their own. However, they always go back to their mothers, specifically at nighttime, to continue to nurse. However, that ends at the around 5 month mark. But since ringtail lemurs are a relatively social group, all of the females will raise all of the offspring as a group.
Next, we want to talk about the communication from the ringtail lemurs. Just like humans, they communicate in various ways. Auditory communication consists of many different vocalizations for them. They are used mostly to keep everyone on the same page when looking for food or to alert a predator's presence to the entire group. The vocalizations also can be transitional, meaning they start off conveying one message, then switch to conveying another message. Some popular vocalizations include clicking, moaning, wailing, or yaps. Olfactory communication is just as important, if not more important, than auditory communication for the ringtail lemur. They have scent markings, which may include a vertical or horizontal mark on a surface with their scent glands. The use of scent marking also is differentiated by age, sex, or social status. Within scent marking, ringtail lemurs will also engage in urine marking. There is even evidence that shows urine marking is done in a different way from general urination. This usually can be indicated by the way they move their tail for each of those two. Females typically use urine marking to display their territory, boundary lines, and they are going to use urine marking more prevalently than the males.
As I said previously, ring-tailed lemurs are a pretty social group of primates. Their social group can have as little as 3 different lemurs to up to 25 lemurs. The groups are going to have both males and females. However, the males that are born within the group will leave the group at adulthood or sexual maturity, which is around 3 years, and the females are going to stay with this one social group for their entire lifespan. This leaves the females in the group to be the dominant sex within the group. However, the dominancy is based upon fighting rather than other groups of primates where their dominancy is actually based on their lineage, so the females do fight for their own rank. Another interesting thing about ring-tailed lemurs is that they do build their own bonds by grooming, just like other primates. However, Prometheans do have a specialized jaw specifically for this grooming that makes their teeth in a comb formation to make grooming a little bit more easier.
Ring-tailed lemurs are the most studied of all the lemurs and have a wide variety of behaviors that are unique to the species. To compete for females, males have 2 different styles of fighting that they participate in, which is known as stink fighting and jump fighting. In stink fighting, males will continuously rub the secretions from their scent glands on their wrists onto their tails to make their tails stinky and then wave their tails back and forth over their heads to intimidate rival males. This process usually keeps going until one of the males decides to back down and run off. The second fighting behavior is known as jump fighting. Jump fighting involves the lemurs leaping into the air and slashing at each other with their sharp canine teeth, and is considerably more aggressive in style than stink fighting is. The picture demonstrates 2 male lemurs fighting for dominance. The outcomes of these fights only influence which males mate with selected females based upon dominance and does not influence whether males are more dominant than the females in their troops, because all females are ranked above any male. Lemurs also have behaviors that strengthen the bond of the group and work to keep the troop together. The main bonding behavior of grooming has previously been mentioned, but troops also participate in a behavior known as sun worshipping. In sun worshipping, the ring-tailed lemurs will gather together to bask in the sun in a way that the sun's heat is absorbed through the fur on their bellies. The belly fur of ring-tailed lemurs is not as thick as other species of lemurs and gives them the energy to warm their bodies before they go on their day-long searches for food and resources. Another way that ring-tailed lemurs keep their troops together is by raising their tails in the air to act as flags when they are traveling together. If one member of the troop wanders off a bit too far, the tails of the group will guide them back to traveling safely together.